Hi again, welcome back. In this brief recording, I want to talk a little bit more about the ways that futurists and foresight professionals scan for futures and trends and the different kinds of models and methods that they use. And clearly, as much as possible, I want to put that in an AI, big data and blockchain perspective. So one of the first kinds of tools that futurists use is horizon scanning. So this is a systematic process for identifying and monitoring trends, developments, emerging issues, the kinds of things that will impact on an organisation, an industry, or society as a whole in the future. In the context of AI, horizon scanning could involve monitoring advances in machine learning algorithms, natural language processing, and of course, computer vision. Now, the other thing that's really important with horizon scanning, and you'll see in the two longer form videos that I've asked you to watch this week, the one from the Centre for Humane Technology in particular, but also the Amy Webb material, is they scan for where advances in one technology might impact advances in another technology. And the adoption, particularly of transformer technology in the context of artificial intelligence. Remember that the T in GPT stands for transformer. That idea effectively that anything is data, anything is language, and that advances in one area of AI are no longer incremental as these different systems and different types of AI are growing in parallel. This creation of large language models, I think the Centre for Humane Technology calls them golems. This advances in one area can be juxtaposed and moved over to others. So looking at the horizon, but a horizon that is coming towards us very, very rapidly. In blockchain, horizon scanning could include the development of new consensus mechanisms, new applications for smart contracts, and privacy-preserving technologies. And of course, the two together provide significant opportunities. So let's think of some ways that, and what I'm going to do throughout this video is I'm going to look at regulators, or what I'm going to call industry incumbents, so the institutions that we already have in a business sense, and maybe some more entrepreneurial ways when I can notice the difference. Clearly at a very high level, but mainly to get you thinking. So regulators can use horizon scanning to monitor advancements and trends in AI and blockchain, which in theory will allow them to proactively identify potential legal and ethical issues. The proactive approach enables regulators to develop appropriate policies and regulations in a timely way, might help ensure that the rapid pace of technological advancement or innovation doesn't outstrip the legal and regulatory frameworks that are necessary to protect us from ourselves, from society, and to foster responsible development. Horizon scanning by industry incumbents could utilize, so industry incumbents could utilize horizon scanning to identify potential legal and regulatory challenges on the other hand, to identify what they think that the regulators might do and develop either within the scope of what that expectation is, or basically code is law, to embed into the code as much as they can control that, knowing that AI that learns from itself could develop in ways that we don't expect. So foresight can enable incumbents to adapt their business models, invest in research and development, and engage with regulators to shape the regulatory environment. So one of the things that we've seen over the last few years, incumbents like Google and Facebook have presented to Senate committees in the US, Australia, and worldwide to try and shape what they think that the future might look like. Similarly, Amy Webb talks about this grab for data and this idea effectively that the AI that we get most used to interacting with is the AI that we will interact with, that we will feed with data, that in turn will make it stronger. And so we're seeing even though the cost of processing AI at the moment is essentially around 2 US cents for every chat that somebody has with the GPT 3 or 4, we're seeing the large incumbents like Microsoft, like Google, and others really invest in getting their hardware systems, their cloud-based systems, integrated and able to draw on as much data as they can, because the horizon says they who achieve that at the highest level are likely to win. So what does this mean for entrepreneurs? Entrepreneurs who are developing businesses and solutions using AI or blockchain can use horizon scanning to identify potential legal and regulatory hurdles that are going to affect their ventures. By staying informed about the evolving legal and regulatory environment, entrepreneurs can adapt business models, product offerings, and strategies to minimize risk and to comply with relevant regulations. Perhaps entrepreneurs now looking at the consolidation by the big companies, not big countries, but big companies, of the way that AI is developing, might be looking for ways to sideswipe that, to either draw from their learning or to just reimagine the future altogether. Who knows? Another method that you'll come across a lot in your readings, if you're researching in this, is known as the Delphi Method, again named after the Oracle of Delphi. Basically, it's a structured consensus-building process that gathers expert opinions to forecast future developments, risks, and opportunities. In the context of AI and blockchains, experts from various fields, including computer science, law, and ethics, but also marketing or agriculture or art, could be consulted to gather insights and predictions about the future, about the legal and regulatory and ethical implications of the technologies. So using the Delphi methods, experts in AI and law could reach a consensus on potential legal challenges posed by autonomous vehicles, for example. For example, who should be liable in the case that an accident happens? This insight can help regulators and business develop appropriate regulations and contractual frameworks that ultimately allocate risks. Also, by gathering expert opinions using the Delphi method, regulators could obtain insights into the potential legal, regulatory, and ethical implications of AI. And the consensus building process can help them develop well-informed and balanced regulations, perhaps. What would industry incumbents do with this method? They can leverage it to gather expert opinions about the potential risks and, of course, the potential opportunities. They can inform their strategic decision-making about what to speed up and potentially what to slow down, and help them address the regulatory challenges in a proactive way. Entrepreneurs would really be doing the same thing, using a method like this to gain insights from experts in various fields, helping them to understand the potential challenges, legal and regulatory and ethical, of course, but also what the opportunities might be that will help inform them right from the beginning about the ways to develop products, services, and to engage with the stakeholders, including regulators. Scenario planning is a strategic method that is likely to be something that many of the business students will be discussing, and I think law students should discuss more often, quite frankly. It's a strategic planning method that involves developing multiple plausible future scenarios based on key uncertainties and assumptions. In the context of AI, scenario planning could involve exploring the implications of various levels of AI adoption in industry. So what does it look like in healthcare? What does it look like in financial services? What does it look like in transportation? Similarly, for blockchain, scenarios could be developed based on the rate of adoption for decentralized finance, DeFi applications, or the potential impact of quantum computing on blockchain security and the run-on impacts on the costs, both actual money costs and environmental and energy costs on the development as well as on security itself. Businesses could use scenario planning to address the potential impact of AI on their workforce. They can use it to develop strategies to upskill employees or to adapt their business models to thrive in an AI-driven future. Amy Webb's material focuses in on, she gives best case and catastrophic scenarios. And really these are thought experiments to help us identify what a future might look like and then how best to plan for it. Backcasting is a kind of version of this, but instead of looking at what the scenarios could be, what we're doing is starting off with a desired future state or an outcome, a goal, and working backwards to identify the necessary steps, actions, or developments to achieve that outcome. Much as you started this course with the goal of getting an HD, and if at the beginning of the course you planned backwards, week by week, what you needed to do, where you needed to focus your attention, how much time to give, chances are you are closer to that goal than you would have been if you hadn't made that plan. So backcasting is kind of the opposite of forecasting, but rather than guessing what the future might look like and trying to work out which different scenario might be more or less probable, backcasting is about identifying what we want the future to look like and then articulating what the steps are to get there. So regulators could use backcasting to develop a roadmap for ensuring the ethical use of AI in healthcare, for example, identifying milestones such as the establishment of data privacy standards, the development of guidelines for AI algorithms, and the implementation of auditing processes. An example that you saw in a previous week is the blockchain roadmap. Part of that road mapping process is a backcasting process of identifying, well, what do we want the future to look like, and then what's needed in relation to the regulation of blockchain regulation to get there. Industry incumbents might use backcasting to identify the necessary steps and actions that they need to achieve in order to get to that desired future outcome in the context of the adoption of AI or the adoption of blockchain technologies. It's a strategic approach that can help those incumbents ensure that their business models, practices, investments, even their workforce aligns with the evolving legal and regulatory landscape, reducing the potential liabilities and fostering responsible innovation. Or just conquering the world, if that's what their goal is. No, I didn't say that. Entrepreneurs basically can use backcasting in a similar way. They envisage and work towards a desired future outcome for their business. In the context of an AI or a blockchain product or service. By identifying the necessary steps, actions, and milestones to achieve the outcomes, they can ensure that their ventures align with the evolving legal and regulatory landscape, with the evolving and changing markets, and the evolving power dynamics between the providers of the essential services required to deliver AI and blockchain products in this real world. For those of you following along at home on the podcast, you might like to pull out the slides and just have a look at what I put together for you. It's a very high-level summary of, and it's actually, the more I look at it, the more high-level it seems, actually, a really high-level summary of the different tools and the ways that regulators, industry incumbents, and entrepreneurs might use them. And so I basically encourage all of you to have a look on that and then expand it, particularly in the context of your assignments, thinking about how these tools might be used in order to solve the problems that you've been given to solve to the extent that they're future-looking. And of course, if we're going to think about the way that we're planning for the future, we need to think about the levers that are available to us. Now, I've started filling out that again on the slide, looking at, well, regulators got to regulate, right? Clearly, they've got regulation, whether that's at the highest level of legislation or whether we're talking about individual regulations at an industry level. Clearly, even though it's a form of regulation, I'm going to put taxation in there. I think it's something that's easy for us to forget about. But taxes themselves can be used to nudge particular types of activities. At the end of the day, don't get me wrong, I think paying tax is a good thing. I want to have the sort of problem where I seem to be paying too much tax. Theoretically, in a fair environment, that means I'm earning too much money, right? And hospitals, schools, and particularly your university education, which is partly government funded, all of that is a really good thing. But we know that left to their own devices, organizations will organize to minimize tax. Just as water will flow between the rocks, eventually eroding them down, organizations will structure themselves to minimize the amount of tax that they pay. So the most tax efficient jurisdictions are often homes to these big tech companies that, let's face it, have more power, particularly in the development of AI these days, than any single government does, and are being much more responsive to that development. And so there's kind of a quid pro quo. If you make your jurisdiction tax effective, maybe you also need to be looking as a jurisdiction at what that means for the underlying questions of responsibility for the AI or for the blockchain technologies that are being developed, and for making decisions about what are and are not appropriate uses or applications, or even beyond that, what kind of systems and processes we need to understand what's happening inside the black box. Now, clearly, as we've gone through this course, we've talked about things like permissionless innovation and sandboxes and other opportunities for experimenting with regulation, which I think, again, is a really interesting question for you. Industry incumbents. Now, clearly, on the one hand, they're going to respond to regulation, but they're also likely to want to engage with regulation or with regulators to provide input on the development of those regulations and the standards relating to AI and blockchain. By sharing expertise and perspectives, industry incumbents can help shape the regulatory environment in a manner that balances innovation with responsible business practice. Of course, there's this ongoing conflict of interest problem when any industry regulates itself. One of the hallmarks of a profession, the medical profession, the legal profession, the accounting or the auditing profession, is that because of that asymmetry of information, the potential for a moral hazard, to the most part, it seems to make more sense for a professional to regulate the conduct, behavior, and standards of its own profession. After all, engineers should know what's best about or what makes a good engineer. And when a problem that comes up is something that involves negligence or a lack of competency, and when it's just something that could have happened to anyone. But now we're moving into a world where AI is a complete black box. We don't know what's good AI, what's bad AI, and how it reaches the conclusions that it's reaching now, much less the conclusions that it will reach as it grows exponentially in power and ability. So do we have AI regulated itself? Like, we really need to rethink the whole model. And again, I would point you towards the Center for Humane Technology in particular, for those of you who are interested in these kind of questions, to get thinking about some of the ideas and some of the issues. Organizations can also use their own internal policies and guidelines to address ethical, legal, and regulatory considerations. That's often about empowering whistleblowers, something that has been a really difficult question. Also, of course, industries have customer and supply contracts. So essentially a contract, and we've spoken about this a number of times, is a kind of private law mechanism that allows people to set up a set of rules as between themselves. And so by incorporating clauses related to data privacy, the use of that data, prediction analytics, intellectual property, liability for the end use of the particular product or service, the parties can allocate risks and responsibilities in a manner that potentially could protect their interests. Will it foster responsible business practices? There's a range of different questions that arise there. Similarly, entrepreneurs may too want to talk to regulators or to advocate for the establishment of new regulatory standards, new approaches based on the efficiencies and the effective ways that they're bringing new technologies to the table. Also, regulators tend to engage with and try and promote entrepreneurship with things like tax concessions and R&D grants. Again, it's kind of a crossover between the two groups. Also, when you're not an incumbent, when you're starting with a blank sheet of paper, you've got way more opportunity to explore innovative new business models, like some of the things we've been talking about, the DAOs, for example. And it may well be that we're seeing businesses that in the future are being enabled by AI and blockchain technologies, that we're basically creating smart contracts to provide that DAOs can execute those smart contracts based on the consensus of a range of different AI. It's a really interesting idea. So to finish up here, everybody's got a say here. I've just screamed through in about 20 plus minutes a range of different kinds of things that you can use for thinking about the future, a range of different tools, but also the different levers that are available to these kind of very simplistic groups that I've broken us up into: regulators, industry incumbents, and entrepreneurs. Now, clearly there are overlap between those three groups, and even within the groups, there are magically disparate opinions, opportunities, and potential clashes. So there's a whole lot to think about here, which is really exciting, I think. Scary exciting, but exciting nonetheless. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.